Welcome to my channel. Today, I want to share with you a story about love, betrayal, and the painful truth we often ignore. It's a journey of self-discovery, where everything we thought we knew is put to the test. Let's dive right into it. I never thought love could feel this. Lonely. When I first met Liam, it was like the world finally slowed down. He was calm in a way that drew you in, like a quiet ocean on a windless morning. I met him at a small repair shop just off the boardwalk in our sleepy coastal town, where the seagulls outnumber the people and the waves speak louder than conversations. He fixed my dad's old pickup truck and, in doing so, kind of fixed my heart too. At least, that's what it felt like back then. I was 22, fresh out of college with a heart still bruised from a string of shallow relationships that always ended with a vague, "It's not you, it's me." Liam was different. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his words felt intentional. I used to think that meant something special, like he chose his words carefully because he was thoughtful. But now, 5 years later, I'm not so sure if it was intentional or just emotional laziness. The beginning was sweet. We went on long drives, sometimes without a destination, just us and the hum of the highway. We'd sit on the beach at night wrapped in a shared blanket, listening to the tide and talking about nothing in particular. And even in silence, it felt full, like our hearts were doing the talking for us. But the thing about silence is, it can change. It can go from peaceful to painful without warning. And I think that's what happened with us. The fight started small, forgotten texts, canceled plans, a tone of voice that didn't sit right. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone has off days, right? But with Liam, the off days became off weeks, then off months, and still, I stayed because I loved him. Because when you invest 5 years into someone, you don't just walk away over a few cracks. But what if the cracks are the whole foundation? Every argument ended the same. Me, apologizing, even when it wasn't my fault. He had this way of shutting down that left me scrambling to fix things. I'd talk, and he'd stare at the floor. I'd cry, and he'd go for a walk. I'd beg for connection, and he'd offer me silence. I remember one night, after one of our worst fights, it was about something stupid, like me forgetting to pick up his dry cleaning. I sat on the porch and stared out at the dark ocean. My phone buzzed. A text from him. "I need space." I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because, how do you give more space to someone who already lives like a ghost? That night, I didn't sleep. I kept asking myself, why am I the only one trying? And I think that's when the seed of doubt really took root. Not about whether I loved him, I did, but whether love should feel like this much work, like I was dragging an entire relationship uphill while he watched from the bottom. I kept thinking back to our early days, the first time he said "I love you," under a canopy of stars, our feet tangled in a hammock, the way he looked at me then, like I was the only girl on earth. Where did that guy go? Sometimes I wondered if I did something wrong. Maybe I changed. Maybe I became too emotional, too needy, too something. I'd reread old texts to see if I missed a shift, a moment when things turned. But love doesn't come with warning labels or sudden explosions. Sometimes it just fades, quietly, cruelly. But the worst part wasn't the silence. It was the hope. Hope that the next morning he'd wake up and remember how much he loved me. Hope that one day I wouldn't have to ask for affection, or initiate every difficult conversation, or feel like a burden in my own relationship. That hope kept me hanging on. Until last week. But I'll tell you about that in a moment. Last week started like any other. A quiet Tuesday morning, coffee half warm, me scrolling mindlessly through my phone while Liam tinkered with an engine in the driveway. We hadn't spoken much since the "I need space" text. I gave him space. I gave him all the damn space he could want, and yet somehow, it still wasn't enough. That morning, something in me snapped, not in a dramatic, shouting way, more like a soft, tired realization that I'd run out of second chances to give. I walked outside, barefoot on the cool wood of our porch, and just stood there watching him. He didn't even look up. He used to smile when he saw me, used to say something like, "You look like sunshine." Now, I might as well be invisible. Hey, I said, voice barely above the wind. He muttered something under his breath. Maybe a hey, maybe nothing. I couldn't tell anymore. I was thinking, I started trying to gather courage. Maybe we should talk. You know, about us. He wiped his hands on a rag, still not looking at me. Now's not a good time. Ella. It was never a good time. I didn't push. Not right then. I just walked back inside and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the ticking clock. Each second felt like another beat of my heart being wasted. That night, I tried again. This time, with more urgency. Liam, I said, I'm tired. I need to know if you still want to be in this with me. Because I feel like I'm drowning here. And you're just watching. He didn't answer right away. He leaned back on the couch, rubbed his face, and sighed. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to say something. I snapped. Anything? I want to know if I still matter to you. He looked at me then. Really looked. And for a split second, I thought I saw something. Guilt. Regret. But it passed too fast. He just said, You're always so dramatic. Ella. That word. Dramatic. Like my feelings were a performance. Like my heartbreak was exaggerated. I left the room. Not because I was mad. Because I didn't trust myself not to scream. The next day, I went to visit my sister in the next town over. I needed air, perspective, and maybe someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. She listened as I vented, nodding silently until I finally asked, Is it me? Am I asking for too much? Her answer came so gently, I almost missed the weight of it. Ella, wanting to feel loved isn't too much. That's the bare minimum. That night, I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the glow in the dark stars still stuck to the ceiling. I felt 12 again, confused, lost, longing for someone to explain how love works. When I got home the next day, Liam didn't ask where I'd gone, didn't ask how I was, just grunted a hello and went back to his tools. But then I saw something. His phone was on the kitchen counter, face up. Normally, he kept it glued to him, and I'm not proud of what I did next. But after 5 years of loving a shadow, sometimes you break your own rules just to see the truth. I picked it up. Notifications. Mostly boring stuff. Car parts. Emails. Missed calls. But one stood out. A name. AIM. A message preview. I miss how easy things used to be. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. My heart had already read enough. But even then, even with that gut punch of doubt, part of me whispered, Don't jump to conclusions. Maybe it's innocent. Maybe it's an old friend. Maybe, always maybe. But the thing about maybes is, they're the crack cocaine of hope. And I was tired of being addicted to it. That night, I didn't sleep again. I lay in bed next to Liam, his back to me as usual, the room heavy with silence. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning in slow circles, wondering how many more nights I could do this. How many more nights I'd share a bed with someone who felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face. Around 3 a.m., I got up, made tea, and sat on the porch. The ocean was loud that night, as if it, too, had something to scream. I clutched the mug like it could keep me together, but I was unraveling, quietly, hopelessly. By the time the sun began to rise, I had made a decision. I needed answers. I needed honesty. And if Liam couldn't give it to me, then maybe I didn't need him. So when he stumbled into the kitchen, eyes half open, reaching for his usual black coffee, I didn't wait. Who's M? I asked. Calm. Too calm. His hand froze mid-reach. For a second, the only sound was the drip of coffee from the machine. He didn't play dumb. That almost made it worse. She's someone I used to know, he said, voice low. It's nothing. Nothing, I repeated, my voice tightening. Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like something. You're texting another woman that you miss how easy things used to be. Is that nothing to you? He turned to face me, jaw clenched. Ella, I didn't cheat. I didn't even see her. It was just texting. Just talking. Behind my back. I shot back. You've been shutting me out for months, making me feel like a burden. And now I find out you've been confiding in someone else. He said nothing. That's emotional cheating, Liam. And, still nothing. Not even an apology. Just that same empty stare. Like he'd checked out long ago and left a mannequin behind. I felt something rise in my chest. Rage. Heartbreak. Desperation. I didn't know whether to scream or sob, so I did both. "I've been begging for scraps of your affection," I cried. "And you had the nerve to go looking for comfort somewhere else. After everything I gave you," he finally spoke, voice quiet. I needed someone who didn't make everything so complicated." I froze. That sentence shattered me more than the message ever could. So complicated. So that's what I was to him. Not a woman who loved too deeply, tried too hard, stayed too long. Just complicated. I didn't remember how the rest of the fight ended. I remember throwing his phone across the room. I remember him shouting, "You're overreacting." I remember the sound of the door slamming. But mostly, I remember the silence that followed. That silence was different. It wasn't the usual cold, dismissive quiet he used like a weapon. It was the silence that comes after something breaks, something that won't be fixed. He didn't come back that night. And for once, I didn't care. I curled up on the couch, wrapped in the same blanket we used to share on beach nights, and I let the weight of 5 years fall on me like bricks. I cried for the girl I used to be, the one who believed love was enough, the one who thought patience would fix everything, the one who thought Liam was worth waiting for. But that girl was gone. She died somewhere between the ghosted texts, the one-sided apologies, and the unanswered I love yous. The next morning, I packed a bag. Just a few things. Enough to get away. I didn't leave a note. Didn't send a text. I just walked out the door, because sometimes the loudest goodbye is the one you never say. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. The coastal highway unraveled ahead like a lifeline. The sun had barely risen, casting a hazy gold across the ocean as it mirrored the chaos inside me. My bag sat on the passenger seat, still half-zipped, clothes spilling out like I left in a rush, which I did. But oddly, I didn't feel rushed. I felt calm. It was the kind of calm that follows a storm. The eerie stillness after everything has been said, shouted, or shattered. The kind of peace that comes not from clarity, but from surrender. I wasn't okay, but I was done pretending I was. I drove for hours, stopping only when I saw a small sign, "Seashell Inn, vacancy." It was a faded seaside motel with chipped paint and a crooked neon sign. But it was quiet. And I needed quiet, real quiet. Not the kind Liam used to hurt me. The woman at the desk gave me a room key without asking too many questions. I think she could see it in my face. The exhaustion, the heartbreak, the ache of a woman who finally chose herself. That night, I stood barefoot on the motel balcony, watching the waves crash just beyond the dunes. I let the wind tangle my hair, let the cold bite at my skin. It was uncomfortable, and for the first time in a long time, I welcomed discomfort. Because healing doesn't start with comfort, it starts with truth. And the truth was, I loved someone who didn't know how to love me back. Not the way I needed, not the way I deserved. It's not that Liam was a monster. He wasn't cruel. He didn't hit me or lie to me or scream. But sometimes, the absence of love can feel just as violent as its betrayal. He made me feel invisible, unimportant, too much. And I believed him. I twisted myself into quieter versions, softer shapes, hoping he'd love me better. But love shouldn't require you to shrink. In the days that followed, I stayed in that small motel, letting the routine of solitude become my new normal. I walked the beach every morning, wrote in a journal I hadn't touched in years, drank lukewarm coffee from the lobby that tasted like cardboard. But it was mine, my choices, my rhythm. No one to tiptoe around, no one to beg for attention. And slowly, I started to remember who I was before Liam. I remembered the Ella who used to laugh with her whole chest, who painted seashells for fun, who dreamed of opening a bookstore cafe one day. I remembered the Ella who didn't second-guess every word, who didn't equate silence with punishment, who didn't cry herself to sleep over someone too emotionally lazy to say, "I'm sorry." One morning, I found an old couple sitting on a bench by the beach. They were holding hands, laughing at something I couldn't hear. Their closeness wasn't loud or showy. It was steady, kind, present, and it hit me like a wave to the chest. That's the kind of love I want. Not fireworks, not drama, not confusion wrapped in excuses. I want warmth. I want partnership. I want someone who meets me halfway, every damn day. I still think about Liam sometimes. I wonder if he noticed I left, if he scrolled through his messages and saw nothing from me, just silence. The same silence he used on me for years. Maybe now he knows how it feels. Or maybe he doesn't. Either way, it doesn't matter. Because here's what I've learned. You can love someone deeply and still choose to walk away. You can grieve what was and still be glad it's over. And you can miss the memories without missing the person. I used to think leaving meant failure. Now I know it means freedom. A few weeks passed. It's strange how time stretches when your heart is healing. Some days felt like entire lifetimes. Others disappeared in a blink. But through it all, I kept moving forward, one small, stubborn step at a time. I didn't go back to our house. Instead, I called my sister, told her everything, and she offered me her guest room. Stay as long as you need, she said, or stay forever. I like having someone who washes the dishes. Living with her was like pressing restart on life. We laughed more. We cooked together. We watched old movies in pajamas and cried at the silliest scenes. There were moments when I forgot about Liam entirely, and moments when I remembered him with a sharp ache. But the pain didn't own me anymore. It just passed through. One afternoon, I signed up for a pottery class. I don't know why. Maybe I needed something messy, something that didn't demand perfection. Clay on my hands felt grounding. And every time I shaped something new, it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I also started reading again. Real books. The kind that make you feel seen. One quote stuck with me. You cannot save someone by losing yourself. That line hit me like truth always does. Quiet but unshakable. I realized I had spent so long trying to hold Liam together. I forgot to hold myself. I gave so much of my energy to decoding his moods, calming his storms. Fixing what he refused to even acknowledge was broken. I called it love, but in hindsight, it was survival. And I'm done surviving. Now, I want to live. I want to eat pancakes at midnight. I want to dance barefoot in the living room. I want to kiss someone who kisses me back like they mean it. I want messy, loud, honest love. The kind that doesn't need to be chased, only chosen, again and again. One morning, while walking through a farmer's market, I bumped into someone. Literally, I spilled my coffee on his jeans, and he laughed instead of getting mad. His name was Caleb. He was tall, wore glasses, and had a dimple in his cheek when he smiled. We talked for hours that day, about nothing and everything. He asked me what I did for fun, and for the first time in years, I didn't have to lie or search for an answer. I said, I'm figuring that out. And he said, that's the best part. We didn't fall in love right there. Not everything needs to be a movie. But there was something about him. His presence was light, easy, open. It didn't make my heart race in fear or desperation. It made it feel at peace. That night, I wrote in my journal, maybe love isn't supposed to hurt this much. Maybe it's supposed to feel like a soft place to land. A few months later, I stood on the shore of the same beach where Liam and I once shared a hammock under the stars. But this time, I was alone. Not lonely, just alone. And that's an important difference I finally understood. I dug my toes into the sand, watched a group of kids build lopsided sandcastles, and smiled. Life was still messy, unpredictable, but I wasn't afraid of that anymore. I had learned that chaos didn't always mean crisis. Sometimes, it meant possibility. I thought about everything I had been through. The love that felt like silence. The heartbreak disguised as routine. The constant shrinking of myself to make space for someone else. I thought about the Ella who stayed too long, hoped too hard, and hurt in silence. But I didn't hate her. She was doing her best with what she knew. And I realized something important. Loving the wrong person doesn't make you weak. Staying too long doesn't make you foolish. It makes you human. You want to believe? You want to fight for something that once made your heart sing. You want to keep your promises. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go. Let go of the idea that love should be painful. Let go of the hope that they'll finally change. Let go of the version of yourself that only existed to be enough for someone else. I looked out at the waves and whispered, thank you, Liam, not for the pain, but for the lesson. You taught me what love isn't. And now, I'm finally ready to discover what it is. Maybe it'll be Caleb, maybe someone else, or maybe, for a while longer, it'll just be me. And that's okay, because now, I don't feel broken, I feel whole. Not because someone put me back together, but because I did, piece by piece. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft gold and pink, I realized something simple, profound, and overdue. I never needed someone to complete me. I just needed to remember I was never incomplete. Thanks for tuning in to Reddit Stories. New tales drop daily drama, love, or ghostly glories. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss the next story we tell. Got thoughts to share? Drop them below. We read them all just so you know.